And we're live, folks. There we go. Subscribe so you don't miss out. You don't want to miss out on Jeff. When they go through this, I'll try the awesome Jeff, who will make his big comeback this year.
Comeback. Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years.
A visual comeback. So I'll try and do the Rod Serling voice. Her name is Nan Adams. She is 27 years old. Her occupation, buyer at a New York department store. At present on vacation, driving cross-country to Los Angeles, California from Manhattan. Minor incident on Highway 11 in Pennsylvania. Perhaps to be filed away. Under accidents you walk away. Accidents you walk away from. But from this moment on, Nan Adams' companion on a trip to California will be terror. Her route, fear. Her destination, quite unknown. Right then, here we go. Following a blowout in Pennsylvania, Nan Adams repeatedly sees the same ominous hitchhiker. Frightened by the fact that the man seems to be beckoning to her, she tries to run him over, only to be told by the sailor to whom she's given a lift that there was no hitchhiker on the road. Finally, she calls home and learns her mother has suffered a nervous breakdown following the death of her daughter 6 days earlier in an automobile accident in Pennsylvania. Strangely devoid of emotion, Nan returns to her car, where the hitchhiker, whose identity and purpose she now understands, awaits. Got to get this up a bit. Nan Adams, age 27. She was driving to California, to Los Angeles. She didn't make it. There was a detour through the Twilight Zone. Or perhaps next week, Morgan can do the Rod Serling voice. Over to you, Jeff.
Sorry, I missed that last part because somebody started shouting near me.
Okay. Nan Adams. Yeah, go on.
Well, I don't. What did you say about doing the voice?
Nan Adams, age 27. She was driving to California to Los Angeles. She didn't make it. There was a detour through the Twilight Zone.
I didn't mean you had to repeat that. I didn't hear what you said about doing the voice. You said
I was
doing the voice.
Oh, I was just saying that Morgan could do the voice if he wishes. Next time.
I doubt he'll ever wish that. Stranger things have happened, I guess.
One never knows with SPs. Cannot be predicted.
Well, some things can. So why don't you read that next part?
The next part. You mean this bit here? Death Personified made his second appearance on the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
In The Hitch-Hiker. People generally credit Serling with originating the story, but in truth, he only adapted it, and very well indeed, from a radio play by Lucille Fletcher, author of the famous radio play Sorry, Wrong Number. Okay, I'll leave it on the screen for you to digest.
Oh, you're tired of reading, huh?
Well, you want me to read it all through?
Well, you don't have to.
I don't know how well you can see it.
Well, I never learned to read, so I only know what you read to me.
Okay, you only know. It's amazing how you wrote those Doctor Who reviews then, Jeff.
Yeah, I had a ghostwriter. I admitted that before, but you don't listen to me.
Yeah, and amazing how you read all those Kersey books that you bought.
Yeah. Well, I was told today that I rely on Kersey stereotypes that are obsolete.
Okay.
Instead of using functions which are obviously superior, because.
Well,
yeah.
I am not of that opinion.
That's good. Well, I like this. I especially liked Nan and the ambiguity of the ending, where they don't, unlike what Morgan said about somebody having like an internal monologue explaining everything, her internal monologue doesn't really explain much of anything. And the best part at the end is that they leave it ambiguous as to who the guy actually is. Because we've already had an episode where we had somebody who basically said he's the angel of death. And it was not like a confrontational thing or whatever. Whereas in this, honestly, my feeling at the end was she already has revealed her true character in trying to kill the guy. So it was probably like the devil or somebody. She probably made a deal with the devil and he was collecting on it. That's kind of what I'd like to think, as opposed to it being the kind of nice angel of death we had earlier with the guy who was basically a good guy, and it was just his time. And they don't come out and say that, but they also don't say the other, which I like. Like I said, they leave it for the audience to decide. And to me, that makes a better story because you've got the girl who's, portrayed in every sense as being not a villainous look to her in any way. She's like the innocent one being pursued by the creepy guy.
Yeah.
But then to me, that's the unwritten twist that you can put in it, is that, it makes sense if she was actually running away from her death that was, a little different than the salesman guy. And I feel like just including that one part where she was going to kill the guy, that the sailor guy was telling the truth, where they kind of have him like he's just sort of effectively on the border of creepy himself. So you kind of get that idea. Like if this wasn't an older show, if this was something newer, I would almost think, is this guy going to end up, trying to rape her or something like that? But I knew they weren't going to do that on the Twilight Zone, which almost to me works more effectively because it's like he is sort of a little on the creepy side himself, but he's the one that's, I got to get away from you because you're the crazy one. And that's kind of the whole thing that's running through this is she's the one trying to get away, like being pursued by something. But as she goes along, it's everybody else she encounters that sort of has a reason to dislike her, or at least kind of be like, I don't really want to be around this person. I mean, the guy at the gas station, he gives the gas to the sailor guy, but not to her. He's really pretty rude to her. Like, if you think about it, a lot of guys in that situation, maybe they wouldn't be too happy about being waked up or whatever, but still, like, a girl in trouble in the middle of nowhere with no gas, you'd think they probably would be a little more willing to help,
Yeah, I think the subtext there was that the guy didn't have much choice in the matter because he might be feel some bruises if he didn't cooperate.
Well, yeah, and I understand, but honestly, it's like, to me, I think you can almost, again, because they don't show that scene, they don't show the sailor talking to the guy, but they do show the guy talking to her. It's almost as if, since again, we know at the end, obviously, the twist is that she's already dead, that everybody she encounters is part of whatever her journey is and not really anybody else's. So we don't need to see a scene of anybody else having through the entire thing, there's not a scene of anyone else talking to anybody else.
Yeah.
Every individual character only talks to her and vice versa.
Yeah.
So that's the consistent thing about it is it's entirely her journey, or you might say escape. She's trying to escape and she can't from her inevitable death. And they do call it, well, on the phone, the woman on the phone calls it an accident. But Rod Serling doesn't actually say that. He says fender bender, which doesn't necessarily mean it had to be an accident. So it might be that she died, where she was the guilty party in the so-called accident, where she was doing something to, maybe she did run somebody off the road and in the process got killed, So I like the fact that all that is left open for there being those possibilities to work out ourselves rather than it being spelled out. And the things that are said in her internal monologue are really just sort of speechifying, using some flowery words, but they don't really tell anything about, what the facts of what happened. So,
yeah.
And I thought the railroad track scene was effectively frustrating in terms of, it was like they waited and that part's not a surprise, but they wait till the last second to have her move. But it was like after all that, you think one thing's going to happen. Either she's going to get out of the car, or she's going to suddenly jerk forward and she's going to hit the guy. And instead she goes backwards. Could be more symbolism that the only way was backwards to escape from this situation. But she's determined to get the car started rather than abandon her car. So again, it's sort of like little insights into the character. So I actually think, as opposed to some previous episodes where I've said they really didn't do much to establish the character, that they had this time that they kind of wasted on other things, this one did a much better job, in my opinion, even without going into factual details about her life. They gave you these little insights into her character just from the things that she chose, the decisions she made during this particular window into her life or death, whatever you can call it. So I liked it a lot, and this is another one that I would do the continued adventures of Nan Adams. Nan Hell, or whatever you want to call it.
I'm glad you liked it, because I think the last two were not high on the Jeff ranking. The previous two.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely last week's was not. Third from the Sun was pretty good. 2 weeks ago, I thought that one was all right. In fact, I said that was one that kind of left me wanting more at the end. I did say that there wasn't a whole lot to the plot, but I also said that if you have a cool atmosphere and good performances, there doesn't necessarily have to be. And, you could say the same thing about this one, really, in terms of, I think there's a little bit of you could call it a cop-out, but it isn't really. It's just sort of a narrative device. The fact that someone's doing like a cross-country trip, it kind of gives you that little cheat in that it feels longer than it really is because you're covering the distance. So you're able to kind of use that narrative method to make it seem like you've had this long journey with the person, even if it's still only 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's, as far as plot-wise, yeah, the whole thing is her driving, but it's the little encounters along the way that are what gives you the gist of the character. And so I think the main actress did a really good job in portraying the character in a way that was sympathetic, but not to the point that you're like immune to the flaws that are evident in what she's portraying. So,
how much of the? I mean, I think you once said that your dream would be to be able to travel across the United States.
Well, yeah, that's one of them, sure.
Like a traveling comedian or something.
Yeah.
So how much of the plot appealed to you, that the fact that it was this person who was driving across the United States, that aspect?
Yeah, I like that, and especially the part where she was with the sailor, where again I think you kind of see a little bit of insight into her when she uses some tactics there, to get him to stay, saying basically, I want you to take me out, So she's trying to like use her appeal to the guy, rather than appealing to like oh, I'm afraid kind of thing, or you should help out a woman in distress or whatever. She doesn't in any way try to make him guilty or something. That she tries to appeal to him, like hey, you want to hang out with me, right? So she kind of she's a little bit wily there in terms of her facial expressions.
She sort of went that method with the guy who wouldn't give her the gasoline.
Yeah, well, I guess either it didn't occur to her fast enough, or she didn't think it would work on him. I don't know, but that's the thing, is her expression doesn't change much. So it's not like she gets some kind of like kind of flirtatious grin on her face when she says it to him. So that again, it's sort of the consistency of, well, she's really dead. So she's not supposed to be like, fully, I don't know how to say it, but like, I like the fact that it's sort of like she says these things, but there's not a lot of feeling behind them. So it's like, the only feeling that she really expresses is distress, and even then, it's really not that heavy for a lot of it. It's kind of like her words are stronger than the emotion that she shows. So,
how much Jeff appeal does she have, the actress?
a lot.
A lot. So how does she relate compared to the nutbag character in the Blake 7 episode?
It's really funny you said that, because I was thinking, I probably wouldn't have thought to say it until you did, but at one point, I was thinking, she's no 5'0" weedy bimbo nutbag, but she's pretty good. So.
All right.
But to be fair, that girl had a little bit more time, I think, to. I don't know. She may not have had more on-screen time, but the episode was longer, so it was a little bit more, and she got to actually steal stuff and try to frame a bunch of other people and get away with it. Whereas in this case, we don't actually know whether this girl, what she actually did or didn't do previously. It's just sort of left up to our imaginations. So I'm sure that there's probably people who watch this and, and figured it was just another kindly angel of death thing, and it was supposed to be the twist of, he appears creepy, but he's really just supposed to be taking her to heaven or whatever. I just prefer to think of it the other way.
I think, okay. So are there any particular things in her character that you relate to?
Well, I guess, like I said, the just sort of tactical mindset, which again is not explored a lot, but it's basically, even as she's kind of flowery about the things she says in her head, she's not really. I would say that she's not really being overly metaphorical. She's just sort of saying things with a flourish.
Yeah.
So some of it is kind of meaningless, but that's the point, is it's not like this deep thing, really. It sort of has that appearance like she's kind of trying to sound deep without really being, so honestly kind of ISFP-ish, if I had to say.
Look at this, just look straight down the camera.
Yeah, that's, I said, it's, like the Monty Python guy who puts the face in the camera, yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, well, obviously, I don't know why, I don't remember them saying why she was driving cross country in the first place, so I don't know what, I forgot. I think she did say something about it being a vacation, but...
Yeah.
But obviously the driving across the country part, obviously, I relate to in terms of wanting to do that.
Yes, just says her name is Nan Adams. She's 27 years old. Her occupation, buyer at a New York department store. At present on vacation, driving cross country to Los Angeles, California, from Manhattan.
Yeah, so I mean, she probably, I don't know how, as a buyer, it doesn't sound like she's like one of the top people in the company, so she probably doesn't get a whole ton of time of vacation, so driving cross country is pretty much her whole vacation, probably.
Yeah.
She might even have to fly back from there to make it back on time for work or whatever, I don't know, anyway, so yeah, that's obviously something that I would appeal to me. But it's just, yeah, the choices she makes, where it's like she's got to take care of something. She's trying to get away from the guy, and she does what she has to do that. So yeah, I relate to the sort of the tactical aspect of it, that she's not too concerned with convention or what's lawful or whatever. It's just sort of what she feels like she's got to do.
So, Jeff, can it sometimes be the case that when you like them, they're a tactical artisan, and when you don't like them, they're not an artisan, they're just self-preservation?
I mean, I could say that that's possible, but
Yeah.
you know, everybody has little biases, but like,
Yeah.
but I think I can usually recognize that in somebody whether I like them or not. So
Mm.
there's plenty of artisan characters that I recognize as artisans, even though I don't like them.
Right.
Uh, I just think in the case of like if you're talking about the dude in last week's show, they just don't tell enough about the guy to come to that conclusion. And I wouldn't like swear on the Bible with this girl either because it's a weird situation. It's not we're not seeing enough of her life to really make a you know, I wasn't even declaring her to be an artisan. I was just saying those are the things that because you asked me what I related to, and that would be the thing that I would say. But I mean, I think she was better written in the sense that there's a little more insight given into her character, but not enough to make any kind of definitive statement on anything like that. Because you really don't see her outside of this one context that she's presented in.
I mean, there was a nice bit of dialogue when he said that the guys wouldn't believe me, and then she says, "I'll sign an affidavit for you." That was good. That was a nice bit of dialogue. Now, and if Tarantino had written it, everyone would go, "Oh, genius!"
Well, the first thing I thought of is there's definitely a couple of things where they're a product of the time, and that was one of them in the sense that obviously nowadays so many people, I won't say everybody, but most people would immediately think, or they wouldn't have waited, they would have already whipped out the phone, taken a picture with the camera, you know. So there's a lot. What I said is a while back, I said that I feel sorry for the kids in school because it's so much harder to make up stories now. Because people have the ability to look up stuff too fast and prove people wrong. I'm like, it's terrible.
I'd like to copy that, Jeff, and take that, excise it out, and it'd be a highlight, Jeff, from the artisan point of view.
I mean, it's. I told you before, one of my greatest improvisational moments was in theater class when we were just messing around in between scenes in a rehearsal where we were just sitting in the auditorium, and I made up a whole Father Guido Sarducci sketch, you know, the character from Saturday Night Live that Don Novello played, that I, you know, claimed I had seen, and I just made the whole thing up. Like, nowadays, like, somebody could, like, check, you know, they could search for the thing and figure out that was never on Saturday Night Live, like, practically before I get it finished, you know? I'm like, things like that are just, I feel sorry for the kids now. Like, I'm like, what do they do when they...
Yeah,
you know, and the people that used to claim that, you know, my dad was one of the astronauts or something. I mean, somebody can bust them in like 2 minutes, you know?
Right. Yeah, the reason I held my hand in front of the camera is to help me find this bit in the video when I record that section.
Okay.
Right.
And that's funny that this thing about his daughter Anne not liking the name, but I liked the name. You don't see the name Nan very often, so that was one of the things I liked. So she had a little bit of an unusual look to her, like, you know, that was not typically what I'm attracted to. So I found myself, you know, attracted to her in kind of an odd way, in that I was like, this isn't like usually the look that I go for. So to me, that shows that she had something more than just looks, if you know what I mean. There was something to the personality and the performance.
I mean, I would have looked beautiful in color with the lighting and the blue sky in California, yeah. But we see lots of that in other programs. Well,
yeah, well, that's what I thought earlier. Is I was just like, well, you know, if nothing else, the girl's cute, even if the story's dumb. Yeah. But it was like a lot of other things, in that it started out a little slow, and then it really picked up as it went. So, and I really liked the ending.
So there's an interesting exchange in this book about how this story originally started, and how it started as an. I'll just go through it. I'll probably read it through for people.
Oh, good. You remembered how to read.
Yes, I remembered how to read. Jeff Personified made his second appearance on the Twilight Zone in Hitch-Hiker. People generally credit Serling with originating the story, but in truth, he only adapted it, and very well indeed, from a radio play by Lucille Fletcher, author of the famous radio play Sorry Wrong Number. The Hitch-Hiker was the first and only radio play to be made into a Twilight Zone episode. In 1941, Serling had heard the original broadcast of The Hitch-Hiker on the Mercury Theatre on the Air, starring Orson Welles in the lead. Welles reprised the role at least once on Suspense. The play stuck with him, and when the Twilight Zone came along, he contacted Lucille Fletcher and bought the rights. He then reworked the play, changing the first name and gender of the main character from Ronald Adams to Nan Adams, but otherwise leaving the basic plot intact. Really? So Orson Welles was like trying to seduce a sailor? Right. A press release on the episode, written in 1960, claims that Serling wrote the script of The Hitch-Hiker in just 6 hours, which, considering Serling's average output, is entirely within the realm of possibility. As for the change in name, Serling named the character after his daughter Anne, whose family nickname is Nan. I will wait for Jeff to come back. So then, I will now take some questions from RetroGamer71 in the chat. Oh, Jeff has come back.
Yeah, that was an internet failure. I didn't even have to go to the bathroom. It was just
somebody. RetroGamer wrote an interesting comment here. Old filmmaking techniques make actors live in their character. So whilst I go on a bit more with reading this out, if you could explain a little bit more about that, RetroGamer, and then we can get back to you, because we like to make these, like to have some digressions. So, in case you missed that bit, Jeff, well, a press release on the episode written in 1960 claims that Serling wrote the script of The Hitch-Hiker in just 6 hours, which, considering Serling's average output, is entirely within the realm of possibility, especially when you've already got the source material. As for the change in name, Serling named the character after his daughter Anne, whose family nickname is Nan. That always bothered me, says Anne. I thought, why did he have to use that name? So the guy who did this book did a lot of research. It was Mark Scott Zicree, and it first came out in 1982, and then this edition in 1989. Right, and then here is the interesting bit where I actually disagree with Lucille Fletcher. I was not asked to adapt the play to television, says Lucille Fletcher, nor was I asked about the change of gender in the main character. If I had have been, I would never have approved of it. For good though Inga Stevens' performance was, I don't think a female in the part added anything to the play. In fact, I think that the dramatic effect was minimized. What do you think of that, Jeff?
I would want to ask her, why do you think that?
Yeah.
Because I don't understand why she thinks the dramatic effect was minimized by it being a female character.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's heightened, and I've put here because you've got the danger of, say, and I would say here that, especially for women who were watching at the time, I think female audience members connected more to her than a male audience member would have connected to a male lead, because you've got the sexual fear of not picking up a male hitchhiker.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they definitely serve to establish that when she runs out of gas, and then the sailor guy, comes off a little on the creepy side, what's going to happen with him. So, yeah, I agree. It definitely adds dramatic effects to it. So I don't understand why she would say it would be minimized.
Yeah, and also, seeing as this is only the second episode in 16, well, and if you include the pre-pilot, only the second in 17 where the lead character's been female.
Yeah, and this was see, there's an example right there. I can say the female character in the other one was probably an artisan, probably an ESFP, in fact, and I didn't like her
Yeah.
very much. So there, it's not just about whether I like the character.
Yeah. Yeah, she could have been written a little bit, a little bit more depth.
Well, and that one,
Oh, just dropped out a little bit. I'll wait for him to come back. So yeah, I'll do a little preview for people whilst I wait for Jeff to come back. And Jeff, if you can hear me talk, just talk over me, because then I know you're back. In fact, what I'll do is I'll see what happens. He'll probably drop out, folks, and then come back again. Right, so a little preview. So I think what happened was that Lucille Fletcher was so in awe of Orson Welles' performance that she couldn't imagine a female in it, even though that's really silly, because it was from her own experience as a female driver that she got this idea. Now Retro Gamer has come to the rescue, and I can answer his question. So does this mean I am I am adapter. Practice makes less bad. Right, camera, celluloid, lighting, props, set dressing, etc. Longer production schedules. You get a more refined performance, like a theatre performance, and more care in the missing scene I studied. Ah, missing scene. That's in a film studies book I have, and I've forgotten what missing scene is.
well, I probably ought to wrap up at least my part pretty quick, because I don't know how many times this is going to happen. So.
Right, okay. Right, so curiously, although Serling was unaware of it when he changed the main character to a woman, the Hitch-Hiker was based on an incident that happened to the author herself, she explains. I first got the idea for the Hitch-Hiker in 1940 when I crossed the country from Brooklyn to California with my first husband, Bernard Herrmann, who wrote the music for the radio play, incidentally. And we saw an odd-looking man, first on the Brooklyn Bridge and then on the Pulaski Skyway. We never saw him again. However, I didn't quite know what to do with the idea until a year later, when shortly after my first daughter was born, I conceived the idea of doing it as a ghost story. After that, I wrote it in a couple of days during the afternoon when my newborn baby was taking a nap. Right, and then this is about Orson Welles, and so she may have got, loved his performance so much that she didn't want to imagine. I think she was just pissed at somebody redoing it and changing it and just messing with her stuff. Because I think it was better as a female lead. It reached radio and Orson Welles because Benny, my husband, was musical director on the Mercury Theatre on the air. I knew Orson and, in fact, had done a lot of publicity on him when I was working at CBS before my marriage to Benny. I wrote the show for him, designing the narration more or less to fit his style and manner of speaking. Welles did it eloquently and imaginatively, and I was very pleased with the results. Right, okay. Despite Miss Fletcher's preferences, the fact remains that it is the Twilight Zone version of the Hitch-Hiker which is remembered today, and judged on its own merits, it proves quite effective. Inga Stevens plays her role with an extreme nervousness, which when coupled with, and there's some like the stuff at the bottom that you can see there for yourself, folks. I'm not going to read it out. It's just a footnote. I'm going to go across because we're a little bit pressed for time. So I'll just say that bit again at the bottom, not the footnote. Inga Stevens plays her role with an extreme nervousness, which when coupled with the, so maybe an ISFP Enneagram Type 6, with the deadpan calm of Leonard Strong as the Hitch-Hiker, Mr. Death, big reveal there, makes for a great deal of tension. Yes, and there was very good tension on the railway tracks and the intersection thing. Director Alvin Ganzer adds to this tension. Okay, I'm just going to have to plow on, folks, and then get Jeff's final comments when he comes back. Jeff has come back. Right, Jeff.
I gave it a 9 out of 10. In case I get disconnected again, I'm not going to try to come back.
Right, okay. I gave it a 7 out of 10. Jeff gives it a 9 out of 10. All right. Director Alvin Ganzer adds to this tension by setting up a number of shots so that the face of the hitchhiker suddenly and unexpectedly comes into view. Very creepy stuff surrounded by a cemetery chill. Right. Oh yeah, this was an interesting bit here. Oh yeah, oh that's funny. I've just realised now what it means. When he says here, Ganzer's inventiveness almost brought several camera technicians face to face with their own hitchhikers, meaning that if they'd have done it the way he wanted to do it, they would have been killed and they would have seen their own Mr. Death. Because a certain scene called for Nan Adams's car to stall on the railroad tracks with the train bearing down on her. Finally, the car starts and she backs it off the tracks just in time. Ganzer couldn't rent a train, so he had set up his equipment by a railroad crossing and wait for a regularly scheduled train to go by. Initially, it occurred to him that it might be exciting to film the train coming dead on. We had the camera on the tracks, he explains, and we were going to pull it off. Luckily, a train went the opposite direction, and we realized how fast the train went through that intersection. When we saw that, we thought 3 times and put the camera on the side of the tracks. Yes, you would have to have moved a little bit quickly.
Yeah.
Dear me. Yeah, and that's the final piece. Now, there's a little bit of a comment from Retro Gamer in the live stream. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this up to the camera so that you can see it. He's asked about old movie making techniques. I'll try and hold. There it is. It's gone a little bit sharper. Can you see that, Jeff? Okay, so when he's saying they're old filmmaking techniques, but you see, the thing is, though, Retro Gamer, Alex, I know his real name, that a lot of Hollywood drama series were actually shot on film and made in a very similar way, where they would record it on, where they would use one camera. So, for example, the Star Trek series made in the 1990s, such as Star Trek Voyager, was shot on one camera. And so it would be made in a very similar way, and that's how a lot of dramatic television worked in the United States. Sitcoms would be recorded on videotape, and dramatic series would be recorded on film, because Hollywood was set up to record on film. So a lot of those old techniques are still in place. One of the things they would do. One of the things that they would do, and would still do now, is they would shoot things out of sequence. So, say you've got a number of scenes all taking place in one set. They would record all of those scenes, and Alex probably already knows this because he said he studied film, but for the others out there, they would record all the scenes in that particular set. And so that would mean you could have things which are out of order. And so the thespian would have to mentally put themselves in the place that the character would be in their arc at that point. And then it would take the set down and then put another set up. Ron Howard, I think, when he directed A Beautiful Mind, I think he was the director of A Beautiful Mind, what he did was he actually did that in chronological order. But that meant that you would have to go from set to set without shooting all of the scenes located in one set. And he did that to help Russell Crowe in his acting. I think he was the director, I'm not sure, but I do remember hearing that once. All right, okay, well, so is my uncle. He shot on film as well. He shot on film back in the day, and then he moved on to videotape. Yeah.
Yeah, I like videotape better in general.
Yeah.
Except
well, I mean, the
really high frame rate film, which looks more like video, like really high quality video.
And now, I mean, video is so good. It looks like film, but without the downsides of film. So it's got like the best of both worlds now with film. So that's the end of that bit. So, Jeff, any final comments? I know you've got your 9 in there.
Yeah, 9. again, I mean, I said everything, I guess. You
Yep.
know, I want to take the character and have further adventures.
Yes. Yes,
So
I'm sure you would.
add her to the stable with the shape-shifting guy from that other episode, and
Yeah.
the family going to Earth from their other planet.
And the nutbag.
Well, yeah, I was just sticking to Twilight Zone characters, but
Wait, it's a Twilight Zone. You can bring her in from another series. Anything is possible.
yeah, I was just sticking to Twilight Zone
Yep.
characters that I would like to see more things written about.
Yeah. Right then, so we'll probably wind up now, folks, because of Jeff's internet problems, and also he did have his section earlier on where he pretty much went through everything, how he personally connected to it, and other things. And if you're at this point, you've probably already heard what Jeff has said, right?
So join us next time for The Fever.
Ooh, I will stop broadcast now. So bye bye, folks, and bye bye, Alex.